thank you for joining me for another version of Ask the Mayor. We are all caught up at this point, so we only got a few questions for you guys, but very excited to answer these questions. So let's get right from the top of it and let's get started. So our first question is from a concerned taxpayer. In listening to your report here, I didn't realize that our fireworks in East Hartford, I think you mean Hartford, were no longer being done because of bad actors, fights, and out of control behavior. Will that mean that our East Hartford Summer Concert Series and your Bissell Street Vision, among other events, will no longer be if bad actors, fights, and out of control behavior happens at this event? So this is a really great question. So the fireworks were not East Hartford's; they were Hartford's fireworks that was put on by their Riverfest during the 4th of July. And so obviously, being East Hartford residents with a really beautiful view of Hartford, we were able to share and enjoy that fireworks show on our East Hartford side. But yes, there were a lot of fights, out of control behavior happening. A lot of the burden of that was on the public safety departments, both in Hartford and East Hartford. And so you're absolutely right. If any of our events, which there is no reports of our events getting out of control like this. If you've been to the Summer Concert Series, it's actually a very relaxed environment. I definitely would encourage you to go. Bring a chair, bring a cooler, as well as our Bissell Street and any of our town festivals are pretty well behaved. But absolutely, if they were to get out of control, if we had a ton of bad actors coming, we obviously would take steps. We always have PD and public safety on site to keep everybody enjoying themselves, make sure that the event doesn't get ruined for everybody else. But absolutely, in the event that these events started to get out of control and bad behavior and just became a constant problem for the town, absolutely I would end them, because we don't tolerate that kind of stuff at our events. Our events, for the most part, are very family friendly. We want to make sure they stay that way. They're very safe, give a lot of activities for people, live performances. So we've got a lot of great events here in the town of East Hartford. We don't want them ruined by bad actors. But in the event that things got uncontrollable, we would absolutely pivot and make some changes to make sure that our events remain to be family friendly. Or if East Hartford can't support them and East Hartford doesn't know how to behave, we will end those events too. So I don't envision that happening with East Hartford events. East Hartford, our Park and Recs department, as well as our PD, do a great job managing these events and making sure that they stay family friendly for all who want to attend. So, but thank you very much for the question. Our next question is from a taxpayer. And it says, hello, on your Ask the Mayor on Wednesday, June 25th session, you were talking about the Hocknum Library being a historic site. I believe the Hocknum Library was closed under Mayor Marshall Clare's administration due to budget cuts. How is it a historic site now, and where did the money come from to make it a historic site? So you mean yes, Hocknum Library, which is actually now the Hocknum Hall. It actually hasn't been a library since 2008. The building was closed in 2008. And it was closed not due to budget cuts, but to focus on the expansion of the Raymond Library. As you guys also know, under Marshall Clare, former mayor, we also renovated the Wickham Library, which is now open and operational on Burnside Ave. And so this library was really just not getting used as much as Raymond. And so we wanted to focus our efforts, our renovation efforts, on the Raymond Library, which is what Marcia chose to do at the time. So the building is not registered as a historic site, but it is historic because it was built in 1870. It was actually built in 1870 as an elementary school that served the south end of East Hartford, and it actually was built on the site that it sits on today. From there, it changed into eventually the Hocknum Library to simply be another branch of a library. And since 2008, it's been closed ever since. And we're now putting money back into renovating the hall. We've redone the roof, as well as some of the draining issues to stop the water damage on the inside, to bring this venue back to the community as a potential community meeting space. So we need a little more money to be able to do that. So there was no money to turn it back into a historic site. It's always been historic. It is not registered with the state as a historic site, but because of the nature of it being built in 1870, probably one of the oldest buildings we actually have in town right now, it is indeed a historic property. So no money was put toward bringing it back as a historic site, and like I said, it's been closed ever since 2008. But we'll continue to invest in that property so that we can turn it back over to the community as a usable, productive space here in the town of East Hartford. But thank you very much for your question. Our next question is from a senior homeowner. With your commitment to our town, including our exemption programs, it was brought to my attention that the town of Bristol has a senior volunteer tax relief program. Maybe this could be researched, and a program of this nature could be offered to seniors. So thank you so much for bringing this to my attention. I did look into this program, and it is quite interesting, and something that I think we will take a hard look at and see how we can incorporate it, especially as we get ready for next year's budget, which we're already starting to talk about today, believe it or not. And so just to fill people in who are watching on the program that this homeowner is talking about, in the town of Bristol, they have a senior volunteer tax relief program. It is a tax credit in the amount of $300. The program is for residents who are 60 years or older who own real property in town to volunteer about 50 hours a year. And that is for to volunteer for anything going on in town, a town event, soup kitchen, food pantry, you name it. But it requires that they do 50 hours within the year. It is open to residents or seniors who have a minimum or a minimum income not to exceed $45,000 for single individuals or $50,000 for senior couples. Overall, the program can only accommodate about 80 applicants, so that's about 80 seniors, at least in Bristol, who can participate in this program, or equal to $24,000 in total exemption given to residents in the town of Bristol. So those are the parameters of this program. I actually think it's a really neat program and something that I think we can look into to see what's feasible here in the town of East Hartford. We're always looking for volunteer hours from our residents, whether it's to get back once again at our own events, our own food pantries that we have, our homeless shelters in town, our clinics, you name it. We're always looking for volunteers. So if there's a way to incentivize it, I think it is something we'll look into. But like I said, those are the parameters of the program. I don't know if those will be the parameters for our program should we pursue it. But I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I think it's an interesting idea and something I'll definitely look into. But thank you. Our next question is from Pat. Do you have any plans to extend the parking situation at the senior center? Parking for the Independence Day celebration yesterday was very challenging. Ended up parking on the street. Pat, thank you so much for this. I too did have to park on the street as well. And I can see that for specific events, you are right. The center is becoming extremely popular, and so parking is becoming a little bit of an issue. As you guys should know, we do have a shuttle program now operating at the senior center. We have a daytime driver who is using the parking lots at ECLC as well as at the Brewer House and Hocknam Library, Hocknam Hall we were just talking about, as overflow, which is right down the street from the senior center to shuttle you back to the senior center for really popular events. In addition to that, we did finally get approval from the state DOT to build parking across the street on the flat part of the bank that supports the Route 2 interstate. So we are working with DOT right now on acquiring an easement of the property. We are within engineering and design of what those couple parking spaces will look like. Looks like we can possibly get about 9 extra parking spaces, which I think should help. Like I said, they will be right across the street of the site that the senior center is on, right on the flat part of the bank that goes up to Route 2. So those are kind of our two options right now that we're exploring to try to relieve some of the parking. As you guys know, behind the senior center is going to become the new senior center garden that is already being built out as we speak, with a completion date of the end of July. So just a nice outdoor recreation enhancement to the experience of the senior center. And like I said, at the same time, I'm working on 2 different parking options to try to relieve the parking. So Pat, thank you very much for your question, and I appreciate your patience while we work on this issue. All right, our last question is from Eric. Why does the town of East Hartford make it so extremely difficult for its residents to get to the transfer station? They're only open 3 days a week for 6 hours, and they close for lunch. Why can't they take staggered lunch times to keep it open? So thank you very much for your question, Eric. You're all right. The transfer station is open 3 days a week, 6 hours those 3 days. And right now that is based on demand. We do extend our hours in the spring as well as the fall when we have spring and fall cleanup. However, during the summer, these 3 days at 6 hours are really just based on the demand of the public. We don't really get a lot of complaints for people wanting the hours extended. We do keep the transfer station open, I believe, the first and third Saturday of each month as well, as just an extra day. My DPW director is exploring extending one of the days an additional hour if possible, if our budget can absorb that extra overtime cost. But to answer your question about why lunch shuts it down, why it's an hour, and why they can't stagger it, is there are only 3 people that work in the transfer station, and each person, per their collective bargaining agreement, has a specific job. It is a job that only they can do, and this is very typical in union environments. It is not a job that they can have someone slide over and do while they go take lunch to keep it open. and they can move to another person's job. They have their one job. They're the only people that can do it as outlined in their CBA, their collective bargaining agreement. And so, therefore, the only way to do it is everyone has to take lunch at the same time, or there would be a gap in how they support the transfer station, whether they're the excavator operator, whether they're the purchase point of contact person, or the other person who's assisting residents to throw away their rubbish. So it is unfortunate, but I can assure you, Eric, my DPW director, I have brought this to his attention. He will be reaching out to you directly to talk about your experience to see how we can improve that experience for you. But as of now, we're a little stuck between what our CBAs will allow us to do in terms of what those employees can do. But for now, like I said, my DPW director will be reaching out to you to see how we can better assist you in this endeavor. But thank you very much for your question, Eric. All right, everybody, those are all the questions we have for you today. Like I said, light, but keep sending your questions for me. I love answering them. Stay tuned for What's Next Wednesday as we continue to share with you the exciting development projects we have going on. Want to remind you guys that in addition to this Ask the Mayor series and What's Next Wednesday, I also have the Mayor's Minute, which is an update on what goes on at each town council meeting. Each town council meeting is the first and third Tuesday of every month. However, for July, we only have one meeting. That's going to be July 15th. So stay tuned for July 16th's Mayor Minute, where I update you on all the great things we talked about at the council meeting. All right, my friends, stay safe and stay cool.